You reckon you can reply to that?
Yeah, well, you can hold that, Craig. Thanks. Yeah, it's very hard to speak after that. That's, I'm not sure where to start, really. It's very touching to be here tonight, to see so many people care about this great sport that we play and that we put so much passion into, not only for ourselves but for our country. Wasn't sure where to start this speech, but I've got to go to John Newcombe, the man who's named here tonight, who was my first Davis Cup captain. I owe a hell of a lot to Nuke and Tony Roach for the way they instilled me into Davis Cup and taught me what Davis Cup was about and what it meant to get to play for the green and gold and to go out there and play with pride every time you stepped on the court for Davis Cup. My first tie, I was an Orange boy for a lot of years. We had one of the greatest Davis Cup teams ever in the Woodies as our doubles team, who were the number one doubles pair in the time. And then Patrick Rafter, obviously a world number one, and then Mark Philippoussis, number 8 in the world. So I was 25-30 in the world. I couldn't even get close to a look in. I eventually hurt his knee, which was lucky for me. And I got an opportunity, and Newt gave me the call up to go and play in Boston, where my first match in Davis Cup was actually against Todd Martin, who was world number 4 at the time. And yeah, there's no secret, I was shitting myself. Absolutely. Playing one of the American greats in their backyard in about 45 degrees heat on that day with John Howard and President Bush watching on. And I was fortunate enough for Nuke to help me, I don't know whereabouts you're sitting, Nuke, but to help me out and get me through that match. It was a lot of deep breathing, but they instilled something into me about playing for Australia. And it's not only Nuke and Roachie, I have to thank all the guys that have helped me out as such a young kid growing up. The Woodies were fantastic. They put me up at their house when I was a young kid. They taught me what playing for Australia was about. Patrick Rafter was fantastic. Seeing him come back from 2-0 down against Cedric Pierline in Sydney was one of the greatest tennis moments for me to be there and be an Orange boy and be a part of that. There's been so many of these times throughout my career that have installed what I want to do as a tennis player and what I want to leave out in the court for my country. I'd like to thank, obviously, Nuke and Roachie, but I'd like to thank John Fitzgerald and Wally Masur as well. I'm not sure if Wal's here tonight, but Fitzy sure is. And the times that we had in Davis Cup were fantastic. You guys kept it rolling from what Nuke and Roachie brought to the table, and it was fantastic for me to go out there and play for you guys and leave it all on the court for our team. And now, obviously, with Pat Rafter moving in and Tony Roach back in the fold, it's a fantastic environment for us moving forward. And for me, it's more now about being the elder statesman out there and trying to help these young guys coming through. And yeah, it feels weird. Obviously, when I first qualified for the Australian Open, I was 15, and all of a sudden I'm 30 now, and people are writing you off. So, for me, it's a special thing to play Davis Cup. There's nothing better about it. You know, I can only recall crying twice after tennis matches throughout my career, whether it was juniors or seniors. Those 2 times were we lost the Davis Cup final in Spain. We'd had a great run. We won our 1999 in Nice against France, where Mark Philippoussis played some incredible tennis, and then in 2000 we did a hell of a job to make the final that year. We had a daunting task of playing Spain in Spain on very slow clay court, and I ended up was the person out there on the last day and lost to Juan Carlos Ferrero in a tight 4-set match, and I actually couldn't face going in the locker room because I knew it was Nuke and Roachie's last ever tie as Davis Cup coach and captain, and yeah, I was shattered. I was broken, and that's what it means to me to play for these guys. It's not just playing for yourself. And then obviously the second time that I shed a few tears was when I lost the 5th rubber against Wawrinka only a couple of months ago in Sydney. And yeah, I'd always dreamt of playing a 5th rubber. I'd actually never played a 5th rubber at Davis Cup, which is amazing considering how many matches I've played. But that was one of the hardest losses to take, and believe me, it wasn't only a few nights that I got over. I'm still not over it quite yet. So, that's what drives you on, though, and that's what I want to leave, for the young guys coming up, whether it's Bernie or Luke Saville or Jason Kubler and these guys stepping into it, or what Davis Cup's about and what playing for Australia's about. I'm not really sure what else to say, but it's an amazing feeling for me, purely because this year's been nothing short of a nightmare in terms of trying to get over my foot injury. I had to pull out of the French Open and and the US Open right before the Davis Cup tie, and I told Pat at the time though that I'm going to do whatever I can to be ready for the Davis Cup tie, and we were a set away from pulling off a great win there. So I'd just like to thank a couple of people. Obviously, all my Davis Cup teammates throughout the years, whether you're here or not, all the captains and the past players have been fantastic in helping mould my career and what Davis Cup and playing for Australia is all about. I'd like to thank my first ever coach, Peter Smith, who's here tonight with me, which is fantastic. He coached me when I was 6 years old. We had a great partnership. There's still a funny story when I got the wild card to play in Adelaide that year when I was 16, and we had every single Sunday morning at 7:30 till 8:30 I had a coaching lesson at the small tennis club, Denman Tennis Club, where Peter lived near there, and we had coaching every morning that I was ever in Adelaide. And I still had coaching the morning after I beat Agassi on the Saturday afternoon, and then I had to play my good mate Jason Stoltenberg, who turned out to be my coach a few years later, but I had to play him in the final, and I still actually went out and had a coaching lesson that morning with Smithy for an hour. So, we never got too ahead of ourselves, and I'd like to thank Smithy for all your hard work, mate. It's been fantastic. And lastly, I'd just like to thank two other people. This award, from what I've known, I wasn't here last year, but one of my good mates won this award, and for me, that actually means a lot to me to be the second guy to win after him. His name's Peter Luchak. He doesn't get the accolades that he deserves, and he hasn't won the titles, like some of the other people in this room, but he's the best person around Davis Cup, and he's actually retiring. He may play doubles at the Australian Open, but he's retiring from singles, and I'd just like to say, mate, it's an absolute pleasure to be named after you in this award. Thanks, mate. And just lastly, I'd like to thank, obviously, Beck, my beautiful wife. She's been fantastic. Obviously, this year has been a real battle for us, me physically, and she's always been there to support me, and the biggest positives I've been able to be home and clean nappies and do all those things a bit more. But you've been my rock the whole time, sweetie, so thank you very much. And lastly, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming tonight. I hope you have a great evening, and congratulations to all the winners. Thank you.